What's going on, FA Nation? Happy Thursday. John, we are 2 days away from Friday, 2 days away from the work week. Our work week doesn't end ever. 7 days a week.
7 days a week.
Full of content.
15 hours a day.
But it is the normal person end of the work week tomorrow. So we do have a mini 4-game slate as we generally do on a TNT Thursday. This is actually probably a bigger slate on Thursday than it's been recently.
You know what my favorite thing about this 4-game slate is, though?
What's up?
Is that the late night hammer is 8 o'clock. So
it is amazing, huh? That is.
I'll know whether or not I'm winning money in like an hour if I have to keep watching basketball or not. Like by 8 o'clock, I can either close the laptop or I can leave it open and watch the basketball. It's going to know early. Early bedtime for everybody. You're going to go to bed after this. You'll wake up and find out if you won money or not. So I like these early start times.
Yeah, it's generally something like this. We'll get a 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and then a 10:30, which is always pretty brutal because we have a dreadful 2.5 hours to teeter with our lineups and then ultimately make the wrong decision. But we do have 4 games on the slate. We can just break them down since we do only have 4 games. Philly, Washington, 235.5. Philly, 8-point favorites on the road. That is up from 5.5 where it opened. Houston, Toronto. Toronto actually 2.5-point favorites at home in a 230.5 game total. Kyle Lowry, welcome back. 41 minutes. Welcome back. That's how many minutes he played in his return. Denver, New York is absolutely disgusting. If you want to play that, you'd like to just burn money. 203 total. Denver 9.5-point favorites in the Garden, and then we have the late night hammer at 8:05 tonight. Phoenix traveling to New Orleans, second night of a back-to-back for them. 235.5, up from 232. New Orleans 4-point favorites at home. But John, it's something that we kind of alluded to before we jumped on air. We don't know who's playing, and that is ultimately the issue. It's not like there's like a ton of.
We don't know the value who's
right, right. It's not a ton of primary household big time names that we don't know who's playing. We don't know the secondary and third pieces of each team that could lead to more value. There are tons of injuries per usual in New Orleans. We have injuries essentially in every spot. We did get word right before we got on air that Daniel House is going to play. So any Ben McLemore truthers out there, or Austin Rivers, who played 39 minutes the other night, pretty much,
McLemore's still starting, House coming off the bench, but, if this game gets at all competitive like we think it's going to be a House on the floor, I assume, over McLemore. So,
he's been great as a complimentary piece all year long. So there's no reason for him not to see all the minutes. But we do have to break down this slate. We do have 4 games. We do have 5 positions. And we're going to start over at the point guard position, where I think it's pretty safe to say Ben Simmons is going to be one of the chalkiest plays on the slate. And we do have Russell Westbrook, who is $8,800 on DK. But he does draw a much tougher matchup than Simmons. The Sixers are projected about 13 more points than they average per game. I think last I looked, their implied total was 121, which is the highest on the slate. They average 108 points per game. Pretty hard to ignore that difference when it comes to Philly in general, not when we're just talking about Simmons.
Yeah, for me, and we mentioned on the podcast last night with Sean, he's like my top, Embiid's my top overall player, but like Simmons might be number 2. On a slate where there are others pretty studly players, Ingram, Beal, Westbrook, Harden, obviously. Given the matchup, given sort of the point spread that we're looking at here, Simmons has 50, 60 fantasy point upside, and now he's in this spot against Washington, who's giving up 150 points. It seems like to everybody they play. It's hard not to think Simmons is going to have a ceiling type game here. So for me, he's number 1 overall. I like him more than Westbrook. At cost, Westbrook's more expensive, so I don't see a reason to spend up for Westbrook other than to be contrarian. And, that's just how I feel about that. I'd rather play Kyle Lowry cheaper. Like those two guys I think are, for me, are at least the top two at the position for sure.
I mean, yes, I agree. If you do want to get a little contrarian, I mean, we still have Houston in a 235 total, but the continuance of Clint Capella taking away from Russell Westbrook. I mean, Westbrook obviously benefited from
the overtime.
The two overtimes. The two overtimes, right. And it allowed him to get to the triple-double, which ultimately got him to 55. So I still think Clint Capella is just really taking away from him, but 30 shots is very interesting. Again, Kyle Lowry, like you just mentioned, I mean, he went 2 for 18 in 41 minutes and still got us 41 fantasy points. So imagine he goes 6 for 18.
0 for 11 from 3.
Right. 6 for 18 with 3 of those being 3-pointers. I mean, we could have been looking at someone potentially going for 55, 60 fantasy points, and now he's only 7K against one of the worst defenses in basketball. So I really love Lowry at 7K. If we're looking at Sean's playbook, his favorite play, or I think player in the NBA, is Jamal Murray. But I mean, I understand it in tournaments. This game is going to come in significantly lower in terms of ownership, and I think
we just got all the word on that game too. Everybody who's questionable for the Knicks is active. Frankie Smoke is active.
So don't touch the Knicks.
Is active. Marcus Morris is active. Like everybody that was on the Knicks that's questionable is playing. So Murray does get a good spot here because they're probably going to go. Alf Payton's going to come off the bench, but I mean, we're not going to see 35 minutes of Frankie Nicolino like we had been before, right? Like probably be 20. Elf probably get 20. Maybe DSJ finds his way to 10. So Murray's still going to have a good matchup for at least half the game, probably. But obviously, it would have been different if Frank was ruled out and he's getting all Peyton and DSJ, and I would feel more comfortable riding him. If you want to be contrarian on a 4-game slate, though, you play this Knicks-Denver game because 208 total, no one's going to want to touch that.
I mean, yes, but how do we play the Knicks now? Because with everyone active, and RJ Barrett.
You don't play the guards. You play Barrett. You don't play the point guards. You can still play Barrett. You can still play Marcus Morris. That he's active. That's fine. Morris was popping off before he was sick or hurt or whatever it was. So, I think that those plays are fine. Still not a good spot because Denver's an elite team, but they're back.
The rest of the playbook at the point guard position, Sean has Lonzo Ball, which I think this is a really nice bounce back spot for Lonzo after garnering a lot of ownership and letting a lot of people down, including myself the other night. And then he takes a look at Ish Smith, now knowing that Jordan McRae is going to miss extended time. Do you have a preference of either one down here at this lower tier? And any interest in maybe Isaiah Thomas, who played 34 minutes last game? Really, really tough spot going up against arguably the best defense in basketball right now. But he did play 40 minutes, and that's very encouraging, or 34 minutes rather, and that's very encouraging. And now there's no Jordan McRae. So, do you have who are the guys down here at this lower tier for you?
Yeah, I mean, Ball's fine. Again, we're on a short slate. He can give you double-double, near triple-double upside if he really goes for the rebounds. That's not a big deal there. Yeah, Isaiah's okay. I don't love Isaiah here. Just because I like the guards at the top more. Like I'm spending up at guard today. I'm not really looking to spend down. And of course, the Ish Smith revenge narrative game also is in play. And I think I would rather Ish more than IT just for the savings. Plus, as we mentioned, there is no Jordan McRae, so there's going to be extra minutes to go around sort of at the 2-guard spot if they want to go in that direction. But again, that team got healthier. Outside of McRae as well. They got Bertans back, Mahaney's back. Not Bertans, Wagner back, rather. So, I mean, I don't know exactly if he's going to see 25 or so minutes or he's going to be back down to 20 or so, but $3,800 for Smith is fine for me.
Any love for Ricky Rubio before we move on to shooting guard? New Orleans ranks dead last against point guards, and it is a pace-up spot.
Yep, I think he's fine. Again, if you're game stacking for sure, good mid-tier. He's gone for 50 fantasy points at times this year, so I don't mind it. I mean, Lonzo's not a terrible defender. He's very long. I know we don't really rely on Ricky for his offense, but Lonzo doesn't really turn the ball over. It doesn't seem like a lot either. Like he's a pretty efficient passer, a good ball handler. So, Rubio's steals may be down. So I'm probably not as high on him, but in a game stack, he makes sense.
Over at the shooting guard position, what do we do with James Harden today, John? I mean, he's 12K. I think we can play him, obviously, and I think we feel the same way. I think if you want to spend up, you can. The Knicks value kind of muddies that up in terms of being able to get to him comfortably and build around him. Plus, there's Joel Embiid, who we're going to get to, who's probably the preferred spend of the slate.
Yeah.
So
I have it's like two competing theories on small slates. And I tend to go towards paying up for the best player on that slate.
Right.
We know Embiid obviously has a very, very high ceiling. Do we know if this matchup's going to let him get there? Does he going to play enough for him to get there? Like he doesn't go and play 40 plus minutes like James Harden will. Harden will play every single minute that they'll let him. There are times where Embiid plays 28 minutes, and that's just like a normal rotation night for him because Philadelphia jumps out to a lead. So while Embiid can give you 60, 70 fantasy points, we've seen it. And I think this is just an absolute crush spot for him. I'm leaning towards Harden in my lineups because I don't want to not have a guy who can go for 80 fantasy points on a 4-game slate. He's 12K. There is value to be had there. We just got news that Favors is ruled out again. Kendrick Williams is going to be active, but that's mostly putting a guy like Jackson Hayes in play at center at $3,800 on DraftKings. There's a lot of guys under $4,000 on these slates and even on below $5,000 on this slate because it was a small slate. I feel like DraftKings especially priced players down so you could spend up for James Harden. So I'm leaning towards putting Harden in my lineups. We're looking at a high scoring competitive game here, and we saw Harden go for 85 and 31 minutes the other day. So how do you go against James Harden?
Right, and I agree with your logic in terms of short slates because I think you actually had the perfect scenario, perfect storm. I think it was last week when we had a short slate. We had Giannis, and there were debates whether to play him, and you said you got to play a guy who has 70, even if he gives you 60, and it doesn't get you 5x. He's the only one on the slate that can get you that points, and sure enough, he was in every winning lineup. So I do agree on the shorter slates. I do feel like today is a little different, though, because we have a lot of really, really good mid-tier plays and guys in the next tier at this position. In Bradley Beal, who we've seen 60-point upside from, still priced at $8,700 on DraftKings. It's a tough matchup, but it doesn't matter with Beal's usage, and if he gets going, he gets going. Right. Jrue Holiday is in a great spot against Phoenix, against a bottom 5 defensive team in the NBA over the last month. And on the flip side of that game, Devin Booker. I know Devin Booker's not in the playbook, and Phoenix, he hasn't been great. Let's just put it like it is.
So I posed the question to Sean last night if I feel like maybe it's an industry feeling, maybe it's just like when we are always evaluating Devin Booker, is he overrated?
Not as a scorer. Not as a scorer.
Not as like a true scorer when the usage is going towards him, but like the team around him right now, I feel like we're not getting like, bottom of the league Phoenix Suns, where like he's taking 25 shots a night. If he's only taking 15 or 16 shots, you're not getting that when we talk about he's got 70 actual point upside, which he's done once, but if you realistically look at his game logs, he's had a couple of games where he popped off, sure. There's some outlier secondary stats in those games where one had 12 rebounds, another one was like a high assist game. But if we're not getting like 30 actual or close to 30 actual out of him, I wonder if he's really worth paying for. He's only averaging 38 on 38 fantasy points on the season. I feel like at least lately, I've been unimpressed by his production.
Jamal Murray light?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, last 5 games, he's averaging 33 fantasy points. You can't pay $7,500 for that. That's less than 5x. We know what his upside can be, but yeah, I feel like, there are a lot of times where we say crush spot for Devin Booker, and then at the end of the night, there's like a snowflake or just like, nothing next to his name. You're like, oh, just an average night for a guy that can score, but, doesn't have the upside that we perceive him to have or he should have. I don't know. That was just a question I posed to Sean, just like a feeling I've had about Booker now for a little bit.
I don't think he's that overrated. I don't think 50, 40, 90 guys that average 25 actual or 24 actual rather are overrated.
Well, is he overrated as a DFS play?
As a DFS player, sure. I think it in large part has to do with Ricky Rubio because I think Point Booker is a thing, and we saw a large sample of it. Yeah. When Devin Booker was the primary ball handler, playmaker, he did it all every single night, and he was a 9K player because of it, and we were still interested in paying that price. Similarly to Bradley Beal, right? I mean, when we have Booker running the offense, it's similar to Beal running the Washington offense. But I do think Ricky Rubio just being there, Rubio's a ball dominant player, so Booker's just not going to have the ball in his hands as much. So I think you are onto something, but on nights that Ricky Rubio, so maybe we don't play him. I mean, 4-game slate, I don't hate it because it is the Pelicans and it's a really up-tempo game.
He only had 33 fantasy points against the Pelicans in 37 minutes the first time out, which is another thing that
deterred you from
surprised me. Sure,
right?
Yeah.
I still think he's fine for tournaments. But again, you're going to prioritize Beal because the upside and the minutes. 40 minutes, 60-point upside.
He also averages less than a steal and less than a block. I know he's a guard, but
he's not a great defender.
He's not a great defender.
Not a great defender.
It doesn't help you out in those categories. I don't know. I've shit on Beal enough, I think, for now, or Booker for now. So,
Fred VanVleet, very interesting. Even in the return of Kyle Lowry, he played 43 minutes. I don't think we're ever going to see a game where he just doesn't play. A game that remains close, that he's going to play less than 35, perfectly fine with that. And I think he's capable of it, obviously, because he shows it every night. We have, in close games, pretty much a 35-point floor.
He takes a lot of shots. So
takes a ton of shots. Usage rate is fine. Even with Lowry, I think he's a great play. You brought up RJ Barrett. Would you actually consider playing him here at 5,600? In close games, 36, 29, 31, 29, 35 minutes. The production is mid to high 20s, maybe cracks the 30s. 5,600 is a appealing price, but would you actually consider playing him here?
Only as a contrarian play, and even then, he doesn't have the upside that we saw him earlier this year when he was playing 38, 39 minutes a night. Right. So, and it's a tough spot. So I'm probably not playing anybody in the Knicks, but again, if you feel the need to be a little bit contrarian, I think you can. I just feel like there's enough value on the slate you can go up to VanVleet for another 1,000, or Norman Powell. Right. It was OG that took minutes hit.
Yeah.
And Powell played a bunch, so that's probably where I would end up going there.
Going down the list a little bit, preference in Pelicans guard between Redick and Hart. Redick's probably going to start. He started the last couple games. I know Kendrick Williams is back, but we should probably see Ingram power forward. Isaiah Thomas ruled out just now.
Well, then you definitely play Ish Smith.
Why do we have to play? So, probably.
You have to.
And I think that also makes me want to play Bradley Beal even more because they can run Beal out as the starting point guard. I think this does a lot.
I don't know if they would run Beal out of the time. It will get to my boy Troy Brown more.
Right. I think Troy Brown is definitely in play more. We probably see a little more of Isaac Bonga. They're really shorthanded. They are really shorthanded here.
They got back their bigs and lost their guards. The other night it was the other way around. They had no bigs and all guards. So.
They do have Chris Shioza active on this team. 3K against Philly. If you consider blowout, would you go there on a 4-game slate? Okay.
I think you're going to get 30 minutes out of Ish. So you're going to have to rework your lineups now to fit him in for sure.
Ready to move on to small forward, or you have someone for me?
No, that's fine. Like I said, you mentioned Reddick and Hart, but then we got cut off a little bit there. I like them both. Reddick has a better floor, I think. Hart is fine if he gets it going. With some of the steals and block upside that he can sometimes bring to the table. Talked about it on the podcast last night. He's very consistent, giving you like 10 and 5 in terms of points and rebounds. And then if he gives you, the 2 steals and a block, he can help you get up there. If there's an injury to somebody or foul trouble, he can step in and be a solid player within the starting unit. Kendrick Williams coming back tonight. Obviously, he's going to hurt a little bit because Williams can play small forward. So now you're sort of pushing Hart as that backup 2-guard more so than he was playing both the wing spots. So, downgrade Hart probably a little bit. But again, I think this is going to be a superstars and scrub night now that you can pretty much reliably play a guy like Ish Smith at his cost. And, you're jumping to small forward. We don't have to talk about the top guys immediately. James Ennis is a guy that everybody likes. He's the cover boy of the value vault that I wrote tonight. No Josh Richardson. I mean, he's played 27 minutes now off the bench in back-to-back games. 24 minutes the game before that. He only went 2 for 10 shooting the other night, so you hope for better. But, I mean, he's a guy that has produced off the bench for them. And he's also, under $4,000. So I think you can go start and scrub big time. Maybe get Harden and Embiid in the same lineup with some of the value that's kind of opening up now.
And yes, talk about value at that position. I mean, Troy Brown is technically a small forward.
Yep, small forward shooting guard over on DraftKings.
If you had to pick one between Brown and James Ennis, who would you choose?
I feel like Ennis is the safer play, but I mean, Brown's my boy. I touted him. He's disappointed me terribly.
Right.
But I mean, even look at the box score the other day when Brown got an opportunity to go in the game. He scored. He grabbed rebounds. He can give you some steals and give you some blocks. Like, he's a very athletic wing player. He just needs the shot to drop a little bit more than it has, and the upside will be there. I mean, 5 points, 8 rebounds, 8.7 rebounds, 9.7 rebounds. Those are the last 3 games for him in 20 minutes. 2 steals, 1 steal, 3 steals. Just if you can just get the shot to drop at all, there's like 30-point upside there. So, again, I think the opportunity is definitely going to be there now. But he has started this year, and in that starting line, he did nothing. So maybe him coming off the bench and being now like the feature player, essentially, maybe there's some more value there for him.
Moving back up towards the top of the position, we have Brandon Ingram, who I think is going to be one of the chalkiest plays of the slate against a really bad Phoenix front court, especially with Ingram starting at power forward. Most likely, he's going to get the likes of Cheick Diallo, Dario Saric, Kaminsky when he plays alongside Cheick Diallo. So really favorable matchup there. 43.5 fantasy points over his last 5 games, 37.5 minutes over those 5. He takes all the shots, 16, 18, 17, 21, 22, 24. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. He's their primary player. Yeah. Tobias Harris is in a really good spot here, coming off a really nice 42 fantasy point game against Utah, who we consider a defensive force. But Harris, 33 fantasy points per game over his last 35 minutes. He's in a really nice spot against this depleted Washington team. And you could probably play guys like Will Barton in tournaments. You could probably play Kelly Oubre in tournaments. Even though, just 23 minutes last night, maybe they did get blown out and they were able to rest their starters for the fourth quarter. But anyone else you like at small forward, I mean, it's a bleak position.
Yeah.
Pretty usual.
Yeah, there's really not much more, to be honest with you. I mean, like we've talked a lot about some of the guys already at shooting guard, small forward. They're double eligible. So we talked about Reddick, Brown already. Bertans is fine at small forward. Harris, you're right. He had a great game the other day. So, no, I mean, I think we kind of covered the position there. I think given the value, again, there's an opportunity just to spend up, and on DraftKings, guys like Ben Simmons are also small forward eligible. So, FanDuel is obviously a little bit of a tighter spot. You can hit some of the value that's probably there at the position. Like I said, James Ennis and whatnot, those guys are cheap, but pay up for Ingram. It just makes a lot of sense.
And Davis Bertans, 5,800, played 40 minutes, 35 fantasy points last game.
Yep.
Moving on to power forward, Pascal Siakam, $8,400. Didn't play well alongside Kyle Lowry last game, just 32 fantasy points. Did have a double-double, still played 39 minutes, but 5 of 14 from the floor, and there was no assists for a guy who's averaging four per game. There was no blocks. There was no steals. I suspect that changes, especially with the propensity for Westbrook and Harden to turn the ball over. I feel like Siakam will be in the passing lanes a bit more tonight, or block a couple more shots, meeting them at the rim. Any love for Siakam and any other guys here at the top of the power forward position?
Yeah, Siakam's fine. I think Al Horford's still in a good spot there. Saric with no Baines is really crushed, and he gets New Orleans. On FanDuel, he's a power forward. So that's cool. Serge Ibaka off the bench playing low 20s, possibly mid 20s, in this matchup could be productive.
Yep.
That's probably where I lean. I think Kaminsky, is fine as well. He's 2 straight games now, solid production. Got off to a white hot start against Orlando. He's a power forward on FanDuel, so that's all fine. All those guys I think are sort of in the same bundle. If you want some value, you mentioned Diallo as well. They didn't touch his price on FanDuel. He's 3,600.
Yeah, I think Diallo is the clear value option. I think he's going to be chalky. Could be a trap. I'm going to throw out Cam Johnson 3K if you want to go there. 25 minutes last night. Yes, it was a blowout, but we've seen him in the rotation plenty of times tonight. Finishing up at center, we've already mentioned Joel Embiid in a absolute crush spot. Mo Wagner is available.
And starting at center tonight.
Starting at center, but 113 defensive rating this year, negative plus minus box score, or defensive plus minus box score for Mo Wagner. So Embiid in a crush spot. Philly not on a back-to-back, so maybe we don't worry about the minutes here as much as we generally would. Yeah. We know Washington is the exploitable spot in the NBA. That is the spot. We saw the Magic score 130 points on them. Anything is possible here. We're not playing Jokic, right? It is stars in the Garden, John.
No. You need to be a star to go in the Garden. So, no, out Jokic. I mean, Clint Capella's fine. I know you jumped him, but I mean, 20 rebounds.
Jokic is more expensive on DK, so I technically did.
Yeah, for whatever reason. He's cheaper than Capella on FanDuel. Capella has just been a monster. Like, where did this come from? Like, where has this been the previous years? The team hasn't changed that much other than they added Russell Westbrook to it. And now we have like 20 plus rebounds in like 8 of the last like 10 games or something like that. It's pretty impressive. And the scoring's been there. You can go there if you want. Again, I still think it makes sense to pay up for Embiid, but that's your pivot. It's Clint Capella for sure.
Would you play either Rui Hachimura or would you play Mo Wagner?
I would play Wagner, but I wouldn't play either.
Okay. Any Mitchell Robinson GPP love?
I wish they would play him more than they do. Talked about this again on the podcast last night. It makes no sense why you just don't let him play till he fouls out.
Right. Still playing Taj Gibson 20 minutes a game.
You're starting an old man. Why, when you have a potential like, I'm not going to say like Mitchell Robinson's like a difference maker. Like he's not going to be this, young developing big that turns into like, but like he could be a double with like 2.5 blocks a game. Like he could give you that. Like you just need to give him the 30 minutes. Just live with the fouls. But they want to play him 21 minutes for whatever reason. You get half that production. So no, I can't go there because the fact that I don't know how many minutes he's going to play or the role he's going to be in. So. Plus the blocks haven't been as prevalent.
Last year was insane. Last year was absolutely insane.
Last year was insane. Like, I'm not saying he doesn't get blocked shots because he does. The guy is, again, one of the best shot blockers in the NBA. But, like, he was coming off and blocking, like, 5 or 6, it seemed like a night. And this year he's averaging 1.9. So, like, he was just blocking more shots last year. 2.5 a game last year. So
something
less production.
Something that might take me off Mo Wagner. Jan Mahimi is active tonight and will make his season debut. Probably won't play a lot, but he'll the backup center.
Minutes. Yeah, he'll probably play like 10 or 15 minutes.
I think the only real value option we have here is Jackson Hayes, $3,800 on DK.
Yeah, he should start. I mean, Okafor was a DNP the other day, like a coach's decision.
Yep.
So, and they didn't have favors that game either. So
yep. And Kendrick Williams active. I don't think they would play him as a small center because but Gibson is only 6. Gibson is only 6'9". So
there's no Baines. If Diallo's in the game, they could just as easily put Kendrick at power forward there. So at center rather.
John, anything else before we get out of here? 6:36.
Nope. Just get the value in your lineup and get a little bit creative with the guys you can spend up on.
That will do it. Big thanks to Matt Sells for producing, and we will. John, you and Adam are on tomorrow, I believe, right?
Yep. Tentatively, that is the plan.
Tentatively, that is the plan, and we will catch you guys later.